Hello, I'm MGX2Cat and welcome back to the second channel video. Today I have some more Geography with Toycat for you all. It's everyone's second channel series where I talk about geography and the world and stuff. And today I want to talk about a part of the world that is offensive to really even bring up. And I know that sounds bizarre, like, wait, how can you just not mention a part of the world? But it is a real thing that you might have seen in the comment section of recent videos, because I was talking about an area of southeastern Europe, which is either a country or a separatist breakaway region, depending on your opinion, but it is Kosovo. That's right, Kosovo is the place in the world which is offensive to either call a country or not call a country, depending on who you're talking to, and you might be confused and bewildered by the fact that there really is a part of the world which we can't call a country or not a country, but that is really what's going on with this tiny southeastern European country known as Kosovo. Again, it's got about 1.8 million people living there. It's fairly small by both land area and population, but it causes this giant international debate that literally every country has an opinion on, and I figured I'd talk about why that is, and also let's, use this as an opportunity to talk about Kosovo as a whole, because it's an interesting enough country, and how many opportunities am I going to have to do that? So with that said, yeah, let's get straight into talking about the Kosovo situation. So how is Kosovo both a country and not a country, but also very offensively both those things at the same time? And the easy answer comes down to the fact that being a country isn't a black and white situation. You might think, oh yeah, country isn't easy things to define. Look, Poland's a country. Look, I did it. Spain's a country. The United Kingdom's a country. Yep, we've done this, all done and dusted. So countries are either a country, or they're like, like sea land, clearly not a country or whatever, although you can debate that. But yeah, you might think it's as easy as black or white, but it really isn't. Countries are a social construct. They're something we created to define these things, and because they're kind of it's a fluid definition, as much as I hate to say those words, it's kind of a fluid definition. It doesn't really have this fixed meaning. You can create guidelines as to how you define a country, but they never prove accurate. The key definer that it always comes down to is, do other countries recognize you as a country? And generally, if most countries don't, then you're not a country, and if all countries do, then you are a country. That is why Poland is a country, because every other country on earth, I'm pretty sure, I don't think anyone has beef with Poland, will recognize that yes, even if we don't agree with you, Poland, you are still a country. You are in sovereign control of all of this land right here, and that's why that is. So yeah, that's kind of the argument right there, and therefore Kosovo should be like, oh yeah, Kosovo is in control of this area, and there are Kosovoan roughly people living there. They have their own currency rules and government. Why are they not a country? Why do countries not recognize them? And that's something we'll get more into later, but for now just keep in mind that only 60% of countries say that. 40% of countries say no, you're not a country, Kosovo, you are a breakaway separatist region in Serbia, which is technically by a lot of arguable international laws, not international laws, sorry, by international convention, that is the truth. Serbia was in control of Kosovo until, again, the giant war that ended with 2008, I believe, but there was, Serbia was in control of this region, and Kosovo issued a unilateral declaration of independence, which internationally, a lot's like, it kind of varies from case to case. It's, by the vast majority of cases, unilateral declarations of independences, are generally not recognized. And in case you're curious, it's like, what does a unilateral, declaration of independence really mean? It means if you declare yourself to be a independent country without the country that you're breaking away from recognizing it, which is why, South Sudan is a real country, because they broke away from Sudan. They had the official, at the end of it, at least, they had the official kind of right to do that. That's why if Scotland was to leave the United Kingdom after getting support from Westminster, it would be a multilateral Declaration of Independence, because both sides agree to it. But if only one side agrees to it, it's generally not agreed to as being a real thing. This is why there's a bunch of other countries in Europe. Transnistria, you might have heard of from another video. Just basically, it's a very, very weirdly shaped country on the east of this river right here. There's a country in Europe that's not a real country because it declared independence unilaterally, and all countries say, nope, that's still part of Moldova. There's a few other examples. Georgia has too. This is a technical country, but not recognized because it's a part of Georgia. Georgia did not give it permission. But in the case of Kosovo, because of these circumstances, and again, those circumstances, you can read into the Kosovo War. I know, wars are like really kind of boring to go back and forth on. Because of the circumstances, it kind of was just, recognized that way. There's a lot of atrocities on both sides, and I think the key distinguishing factor that you might be able to argue here is the fact that Kosovo, even though it was a part of Serbia, it's not like there are a bunch of Serbians living there. Again, this is going to offend people, but this is this demographic stuff. The people living in Kosovo, as opposed to Serbia, are not Serbs for the most part, 97% of them. Instead, they are Albanian ethnically, so like the country Albania, and also instead of speaking Serbian, which is the same rough language as Croatian and Bosnian, instead of speaking the South Slavic languages, the East Slavic languages, basically instead of speaking those languages like there, instead they speak Albanian for the most part, or they speak, again, like dialects and stuff like that, and that is why Kosovo people in general are slightly different, and you might be able to argue that. Indeed, Kosovo also was only a part of Serbia as an autonomous region. They were kind of like broken away already. There's a bunch of weird arguments on that, but we'll come back more into that later. Let's now talk about Kosovo a bit. Let's take a break from the international heat of like, oh, geez, someone's gone really offended right now and is saying like, no, Toycat, I don't get that. And let's just talk a bit about Kosovo. Again, only 1.8 million people live there. It's a fairly small country. It's landlocked in Europe, and it's bordered by 4 other countries, which are all official countries, unlike Kosovo itself, which is not. So, yeah, we got another really offensive name that we can't say here. It's either the FYROM or it's Macedonia. Former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. They've got bits of they've got really annoying things of Greece about that. Greek people really hate that they call themselves Macedonian. Macedonians really hate that Greek people force them to call themselves the FYRO. But point being, Macedonia has a border with them. Albania also has a border with them. Again, there's ethnic Albanian stuff, so there's a good link between Albania and Kosovo. That might come up a bit later. We got Montenegro, who has, again, a border with them. Montenegro at one point was in control of Kosovo, because, again, Kosovo's a little region like that. And then we've got Serbia, which officially does not have a border with Kosovo. Serbia does not recognize this as a border, because this is all Serbia. In Serbia's opinion, this is all Serbia, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong. So, yeah, that's kind of Kosovo's borders, and again, it's a landlocked country. As a result of that, we're just 1.8 million people, the vast majority of whom, or not the majority, but the large plurality of whom live in the capital, Pristina. Pristina, if you do not know, also has the one international airport right now. There's a second one being built that's going to be more for low-cost carriers, but for now, Pristina is the only major international airport in the country, and yeah, it's in the capital city of the country. Again, Pristina right here. And the thing I love about Pristina that I've probably mentioned before, but I'm going to mention it again because I really love it, is the fact that this boulevard right here, it's a part of their main street, is called Boulevard Bill Clinton, because the way they got their independence, again, it was unilateral, so not allowed by international law, not allowed by international convention, key distinction, but yeah, the way they got their independence was because of that independence thing, which Bill Clinton was president at the time that all erupted, and yeah, as a thank you for that, they not only built him again, they named a road after him, but they have a statue just over here. It's the Bill Clinton statue, and they literally, again, I love this just as a thing that exists. There is a statue of Bill Clinton just over there. Look, isn't that, I don't know, I like that personally, the fact that there's just a Bill Clinton Boulevard and a Bill Clinton statue, and it's one of the actual tourist attractions of Pristina, because for the most part, the country doesn't have these massive, swaths of tourist attractions. It's not a very tourist-themed country. It's not a very big country on many particular things, and in fact, it's depending on how you measure it, either the second poorest country in Europe or the third. I'm going to go with the second, but you might argue IMF numbers versus CIA numbers, but either way, depending on how you measure it, Kosovo as a whole is either the second poorest country in Europe or the third, and they have a bunch of issues stemming from that, and the fact that there's not really much activity going on. They've got some reserves of some rare earth materials and stuff going on, but for the most part, their country has lots and lots of issues, and those issues with the finance is actually part of what led to them being so different from Serbia. You might think, why is there a part of Serbia where so many, again, Kosovo, either the people who live there, because there's 7 districts for the record. Let's quickly clarify this right now because it's kind of important. There's 7 districts of Kosovo, and even though most people live in the capital, or again, the plurality of people live in the capital, there are 7 other districts which you can see roughly dotted around like that. The little dotted lines, not those dotted lines, those are disputed borders. These dotted lines right here, and in the northern province, there's a lot of Kosovoan Serbs living there. So Kosovoan Serbs are Serbians of Kosovo, and it's confusing. But point being, there's a lot of Serbians living there, and that's where a lot of like disputed activity goes on. Again, it's kind of confusing. We'll get into like what Serbia's doing with that later, but for now, just keep in mind that there's a lot of Serbians living in the north, and in the south, for bizarre reasons going back later in history, as well as the Albanians living there, there's also a lot of people of Bosnian descent, a decent like 10% of both Bosnian and Turkish descent living in the south of the country, which makes the country very ethnically confusing when you go up and down that particular way, and that's something which I found to be just a little bit fascinating. There's also a few other weird mountains. There's a few, in fact, one of the things that I found to be rather weird is the fact that the borders between their provinces aren't like properly distinguished, but again, provinces don't need to have that, but they're not international borders. They don't need to be entirely sorted, but it's just a weird little thing I thought you might enjoy. So yeah, that is Kosovo. That is the second or third poorest country in Europe that is landlocked and is really mostly interesting because of its international status, which we'll mostly get into right now. So, like I said, Serbia does not recognize Kosovo as a country, and this causes a whole bunch of issues for them. So, again, a lot of Kosovo's international stuff comes from Serbia not liking that they call themselves a country, because to Serbia's eye, they are not a country. Again, if any other region from any other country had established independence from another country, it would not be recognized, and this is Serbia's big claim to it. Like, so Kosovoan people, like I said, there was a big depression. Their economy doesn't do as well. I brought that up because, so therefore a lot of the Serbians fled the place, and that led to the place kind of forcing itself into being a Kosovo majority. So they kind of forced themselves into seeming like a country, and then declared independence, but in spite, and against Serbia's wishes, which is why Serbia is really, really strongly against that, and that's why a lot of countries back Serbia up, because it matches their own situation a bit. And yeah, because of that, Serbia gives Kosovo a whole bunch of issues. If you do want to fly into Pristina Airport, again, the one airport and proper way in, you cannot fly over Serbian territory, at least not right now. That's probably going to be normalized at some point in the future. Both Serbia and Kosovo give each other a whole bunch of issues with joining the EU. Serbia does not want Kosovo joining the EU. Serbia does not want Serbia joining the EU. There's just a whole bunch of back and forth issues. Lots of countries in the EU do not want Kosovo in there, so basically, lots of confusing stuff going on because of how recognition works, but they say they give each other a lot of terribleness on that. Serbia also, because there's train links from all of Yugoslavia, Serbia has some train lines running into the north of Kosovo, which they continue to run and pretend it's going into Serbia, because in their eyes it will. If you do cross from, I think if you cross from Kosovo into Serbia, they record you as entering their territory illegally, because that's not a border. This is the border. You entered Serbia there, and you didn't tell them. There's a lot of weird stuff going on like that, and it basically means that the only way into Pristina, the only way into Kosovo by international travel is to, again, excluding cars, because, I'm just focusing on, how I looked into it, is you fly into the airport and you avoid Serbia, because you're not allowed in their airspace if you do, or you can take the train from Macedonia. Macedonia is the only other connection by, an international land rail route. Macedonia, or the former Yugoslav Republic, talking about this part of the world is so hard. You have to say, oh yeah, the country or separatist region of Kosovo has a connection with Macedonia, or the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. For such as Southeastern Europe, right? It's called balkanization for a reason, and that's because there's just a whole bunch of ethnic difficulties here. Like I said, even the country itself is divided weirdly, and that's true for Serbia too. So yeah, Serbia really doesn't like it. It gives them a whole bunch of grief, and that's a big part of Kosovo's really existence. They have real issues of tourism. They have real issues of international problems, because again, 40% of countries don't acknowledge them. How are they going to do trade? A lot of countries won't acknowledge their passports. Some countries will, but again, a lot of countries won't. There's just a billion issues that Kosovoans face, and because of that, there's a lot of tensions in the country, and it's just not doing so well. And that's why Kosovo is how Kosovo is right now. It's mostly defined by this international relationship, which let's get back into. Let's do this. Let's finish this up. So why do loads of countries not recognize them? I think I showed a map earlier. This map right here. Why do all the countries in grey not recognize Kosovo, despite the fact that it's been now 9 years. I looked at my clock, by the way. It's 9 years. 9 years and 2 months, I think. It's been 9 years and 2 months since they gained de facto independence. Why are they not fully independent? Why are they not recognized by all of these other countries? So since this is a map channel, let's go into that. So yeah, why do all these countries not recognize them? And I think the easiest way to look through this is to say the fact that lots of countries have the same problem as Serbia and do not like that international precedent. It really is like a precedent, really. And even though Russia, does not approve of Kosovo's independence, they in fact use this precedent of the fact that their independence is not illegal to invade Sevastopol. If you don't know, the Crimea. Sevastopol's the major base on there. But Crimea is now a part of Russia. They annexed a part of Ukraine, and that was something they said was okay, because the Crimeans declared a unilaterally independence. Basically, yeah, they did the thing that Kosovo did, and they used that to their advantage. So Russia's kind of on board with it, but only when they want to be. But other countries, such as, so again, if we look at the map again, let's kind of point out a few one by one. If you look there, even countries nearby, like Bosnia and Herzegovina, or again, Ukraine, or, we look at, for instance, Romania, Moldova, Georgia, or China, all these countries refuse to acknowledge any. Also, the big one in Western Europe, at least, wrong map by the way. The big one in Western Europe is this, Spain right here, because Spain also has the exact same problems. They don't want to deal with the separatist regions. For the longest time, the Catalans have been raging for independence, but they're not allowed it, because if they unilaterally declare it, it's not going to be a thing. Spain will not give them the opportunity to unilaterally declare independence. So instead, Spain stays one country, and the way Spain stops them is they say, look at Kosovo, they're getting really screwed because they're not a country in our eyes, damn it. And that's kind of how this goes with all of them. Ukraine just had that issue, and they have issues with it in other places before, so they say, no, not really a big fan of that. Moldova, exactly the same thing. They've got their own breakaway republic, so they say, no unilateral declaration. International laws apply. And there's a lot of really strong stances from countries, again, ranging from Azerbaijan to Georgia. Any country that has its own issues with that will say, yeah, let's not do that. And countries that will say the opposite are generally, ones that either supported the creation of it in general, like, oh yeah, the UK, they were part of the, main Kosovo war thing, or the US in the exact same place. Either they're a part of that main effort, or they might just kind of generally agree with the idea of like, you know, they're officially a country now, let's accept it. And then you've got lots of weird places in between. So I'd say the furthest on that side is Serbia, where they're like, they created their own country, and then they forced themselves to unilaterally secede against, you know, what would be international convention. And then you look at the other side, and and then, you know, they also, again, it's really, really tricky when you look at it like that. On the other side, though, you could say, well, lots of other countries unilaterally declare independence, and now they're full on country. Slovenia, not only did it, do that, but it then had a war. But then after the war, everyone recognized them. They said, yep, Slovenia, you're a country now. Same with Croatia, same with all these other places. Why not Kosovo? And the reason for that is because it is this giant, like, game of, like, international chess. That means countries like China, countries like Kazakhstan. Oh, in fact, Kazakhstan's policy is my favorite one. They just say, international borders have been drawn. We are done with the issue now. There's just so many international reactions that basically come down to Kosovo is this giant pawn. The way you recognize Kosovo is a big part of how you do foreign policy, and that is why Kosovo is this weird little part of the world where we can't call it a country because, read the comments and you'll see why, and we can't really not call it a country either because 60% of the world acknowledges as one. So instead, we say it's that place that we don't mention the status of. It is the region or country of Kosovo, and I hope you enjoyed learning about it with today's video, because I'm going to see you all some other time. So, second channel, don't care, goodbye.